Good evening everyone, it's your man of the hour, the man with the power, the living legend of scholarific scrutiny. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the VH Review, the best opinion pieces on the internet. That is a fact, and we can prove it with science. This week, fans of the DC Universe want to know if Joss Whedon and the Justice League can possibly retcon Batman vs Superman enough to stop it from being one of the worst superhero films of all time, or can it merely salvage the potential of a sinking franchise, if indeed it can do either of those things. The Justice League opens with one of the most interesting scenes in the entire DC franchise. Shot from the perspective of a mobile phone held by a group of children recording their podcast, it shows Superman in a different light to the one shone on him in Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman. It's a disarming portrayal of small-town American civility, of warm, friendly manners, generosity, and patience. In 30 seconds, Superman seems more human, more relatable than in the entire 294 minutes of cinematic entertainment he previously had to convince us we needed another interconnected series of comic book movies in our lives. It's a statement made by Joss Whedon, whose fingerprints cover so much of the segment they almost obscure the shot, that this is the direction he's steering the franchise in. Snyder wanted us to gaze in awe at the unbelievable athletic and emotional prowess of these mythical heroes and weep at their unattainability. Whedon would have you believe in them as people. There is just one problem. That scene could have been an outtake from Avengers Assemble, and Superman's personality is now indistinguishable from Captain America's character. The biggest problem that DC face marching forward, however, is that this derivative new route plotted out by its latest captain is far preferable to the old course drawn out by its last helm. The plot involves the coming together of these disparate heroes, 3 of whom have had their own films and 3 of whom have barely been introduced to the audience, to quash an invasion headed up by the destructive giant known as Steppenwolf, a powerful galactic being after 3 sources of energy. When he has them all assembled, something happens. I genuinely forget what I'm assuming is bad. I mean, MacGuffins are overused derivative plot points as it is, but in the Justice League they feel like unintentional self-parody. Each one looks like a triplet of the offspring of the Tesseract. Never in a film have the stakes been so high and yet the urgency so low. Everything takes so much time to explain, there isn't time for any of it to actually matter. The exposition is filmed with no desperation, no foreboding. It feels distant and numb, like it's keeping us at arm's length. The overuse of CGI doesn't help either, as the actors don't even look like they share the same reality as the environments they're supposed to be saving, and for all the villain's size, his design makes him look like something From Software threw away after deciding that he was too uninteresting to be a stock enemy type in one of their Souls games. The only advantage he has over Malekith the Accursed in the running for not to be called the decade's worst supervillain is the fact that he actually gets to speak English. The rest of the characters don't fare much better either. Wonder Woman is still the standout, but she gets way too little time to shine, and you ache to see her in her own film again. Her arc is that she abandoned the world and now she must step back up to lead it. And it's an arc that gets resolved in about half a dozen lines. Also, I don't remember her costume being so skimpy in her last outing, but then again it was just probably Patty Jenkins' camera was less willing to take advantage of it. Ben Affleck has given the franchise and the fans all he wishes to give them. He is done with the pair of them and his performance shows it. His Bruce Wayne feels like he has so little presence, so little gravitas, that he may as well be an astral projection. And as I said before, Superman is now Captain America, but this version is apparently made out of plywood. The newcomers inspire no confidence for their upcoming starring roles either. Cyborg is little more than a stroppy teen who, instead of being into heavy metal, is made out of it. His character takes so much inspiration from the most melodramatic interpretations of Frankenstein's monster, you'd swear he was being directed by Kenneth Branagh. The Flash is not the only source of comedy in the film, but he is the only character entirely dedicated to it. It's a try-hard millennial stereotype whose lines have been determined by an algorithm, and the only input deciding the outcome are pages and pages of downvoted Reddit memes. His personality grates on the rest of the film so much you could sprinkle it over bolognese. Aquaman's character has been thrown under the bus. He has less impact on the plot than Thor did in Age of Ultron. But having said all this, it's not utterly terrible. It does have good character moments and some nice exchanges that leave you feeling better about both characters than you did previously. And there was nothing that made me angry in Justice League, just apathetic. The plot, unlike Batman vs Superman, is understandable and followable, even if it is forgettable. And is that better than being memorable for being one of the most bafflingly awful movies ever made? Before Justice League, I might have told you no, but I know which approach I prefer now. There were times I enjoyed being in the company of the film, even if those reactions became fewer and farther in between as I progressed, and it did leave me with the hope that if there are more movies to come, then at least the franchise is headed in the right direction. Justice League is like a victim in the Saw series. It's got its eye on the exit while it desperately tries to saw its own leg out of the shackles chaining it to the death trap. It's not quite through the bone just yet, and even when it does finally escape, it will need time to heal before the scars stop making a mess of it, but while it feels like a step backward from Wonder Woman, here the franchise feels light years ahead of where Batman vs Superman dumped it. And there you have it, folks. That was what we thought. Why don't you tell us what you think? And not just about the film, but also about the show. Let us know what you like in the comments and on social media. I've been Lee Hazel, this was the VH Review, and I'll see you guys next time.